All right. Well, we're going to get started, so I'll have Johanna come on in here. So she's making her way in. So again, thanks for coming this morning. Again, we got a couple folks online, and then it's good to see you folks here in person. As always, if you're watching this as well on the recording, we do record this and make it available to you. So I'm going to say a word of prayer, do a little introduction for Johanna, and then just turn things over to her. So let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you for this morning. We thank you for this opportunity to hear from your servant Johanna, who has committed her life, especially the last 4 years, to doing your work in a faraway place, to go from here in our nice little area of Minnesota, to go out to Asia and spend time there, now heading down to South America. Lord, we thank you for the ways that she has responded yes to that call. So Lord, as we hear about her work, allow us to be encouraged, not only for what she is doing, but what you do in and through all of us. So Lord, as always, we ask the Holy Spirit to be present here, and especially during our time together. We pray all this and more. In your name, Jesus. Amen. So I got to know Johanna a little bit. Actually, this was before she went to Asia. So this was a few years ago. And so I don't remember how we got, it was, yeah, through Kayla. So Kayla, so I don't even know how I got connected to you. Is an email. So I ended up actually working with them a little bit to assist with some just fundraising strategies. And that was a lot of fun. So I do enjoy that fundraising aspect of things. So I got to work with them. And so it was a lot of fun. So again, if you, this is Kayla Holmes. So she's one that we were supporting. She was part of the 150th celebration. So she was doing work in Spain. And so now she's been back for a little bit. So it's glad to have her here as well. So I got to know Johanna about that same time. And then so she's been kind of hopping around. She's got an interesting story, and some stuff has popped up, some detours I would say along the way, but I'm so thrilled that she's here. Her dad was a pastor in Rochester, and now he's still in Homer, Alaska, which is still the capital of Halbert. Capital. So have you been able to get up there to see? Oh man, I'm not gonna lie. So again, he's not old, but he's been a pastor for a little bit longer. Yeah. So usually when people are kind of at that point, it's like, hey, where do I want to be, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, I see on the the Mr. South thing, he's going to Alaska. Well, good for him. I mean, that's exciting, but that's a heck of a leap right there. So anyway, again, we're thrilled to have Johanna with us. So again, you can just stand right here. They can see up on the screen. I'm going to control things. So as you control stuff up here, just let me know when you need me to flip slides and I'll follow along up here. But can we give Johanna a big round of applause? Right. And then they'll be able to watch it right here. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Unless you have to go those. I'm just kidding. The whole thing will not be in Spanish, don't worry. Thank you so much for having me today. As Pastor Dave said, I'm Johanna, and I'll be kind of walking through a little bit of Latin America with you. Let's see here. Next slide. Thank you so much. All right, so sometimes the best way to tell a story is to show it.
I'm doing this.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you can go through a few of these here. Thank you. Pictures are powerful. My work brings me to the edges of the mission field to document visual stories of what God does in Latin America and the Caribbean. It's with great joy that I'm here with you all today, and I really appreciate you coming and being here with me. My name is Johanna Heidorn, and I am a fourth-generation servant of Christ, My great-grandpa was a pastor in Blue Earth. My grandfather was a pastor in Mankato, and my father was a pastor in Rochester and now is in Alaska. I've been a missionary for about 4 years, working in communication outreach as a photographer, a designer, and overall just doing creative work there. I've been able to share and witness the love of Christ through a camera. A lot of you might wonder what being a photographer has to do with being a missionary. Photography is a universal language. It transcends cultural and linguistical challenges. People who don't know Jesus as their Lord and Savior now have the opportunity to visually witness the great works of Christ through imagery. Through the use of photography and multimedia, I help facilitate, kind of bridge the gap between cultures, allowing folks like you to connect more directly with what God is doing in Latin America right on the field. Providing a window into the work of 35 missionaries, 15 alliance missionaries from partner churches across 14 different countries in South America, Central America, and the Caribbean. Countries like Spain, Chile, Belize, Mexico, Uruguay, Peru, and Guatemala. Today I have the great opportunity to share what God is doing in Latin America and the Caribbean, where the Lord is raising up pastors and deaconesses to do his work of spreading the gospel, planting Lutheran churches, and showing mercy. All of this is happening in the countries just to the south of us. Miracles in the message of Christ is being shared every single day. People are hungry to hear of God's grace. The Venezuelan Lutheran Church finds itself in a country facing severe socio-political crises. With extreme food and medicine shortages, soaring crime, and an economic freefall, roughly 6 million Venezuelans have fled their own country, the largest displacement crisis in Latin America's history. Hyperinflation is just part of the problem. People are facing difficulties every single day in a country that once thrived. Despite all these challenges, each of our 16 pastors remain at their post. Every Sunday, they stand in the pulpit proclaiming the gospel, while often lacking food to feed their own families. These men could very well just leave, just as their neighbors had left. But through God's steadfast care, they remain. Amidst the turmoil in their country, their resilience and their perseverance is nothing short of inspiring. With this mass exodus, we have started to see pockets of Venezuelans showing up in neighboring countries, taking their strong Lutheran faith with them. The seeds that were once planted many years ago by missionaries in Venezuela begin to take shape in other places. If we can go forward just a couple of slides here. Sorry about that. B, could you help with the, yeah. Excellent. We have Isaac Machado, who is a Venezuelan Alliance missionary pastor who has been sent to serve in Spain, where Kayla Holm was serving. And as a Venezuelan himself, he's able to connect and grow these displaced groups of people. Even amidst calamity, the cross is lifted high, and the name of Jesus is proclaimed. In the Dominican Republic, I met a man who had been on dialysis for many, many years and was slowly declining in his health. His mother was an active member of our church in Santiago in the Dominican Republic named Pueblo Nuevo. She had always kind of hoped that her son, not a Christian, would someday sit with her in church. After his refusal of countless invitations, the pastor and deaconesses paid him a little home visit. The next invitation to church was accepted. He is now in regular attendance and joins his mother every Sunday. Miraculously, he is no longer on dialysis, and that's him in the white shirt there. Spanish is the fourth most widely spoken language in the world, following English, Mandarin Chinese, and Hindi. Seeing a great need for Spanish-speaking pastors in our region, the Concordia, the Reformer Seminary, was formed in the Dominican Republic. It's now in its fourth academic year, with 24 students from across 10 different countries, 11 of which live residentially right here on campus, high up on a hill called Golgotha. Along with their studies, the seminarians go out into the community and learn how to be evangelists, shepherds, and teachers. Each week, they perform visitations throughout the community, developing relationships and cultivating those over their years of training. One of the relationships that developed was right out on a baseball field. Outside the US, Major League Baseball has more players from the Dominican Republic than any other country. Baseball is wildly popular amongst the young people. So one of our missionaries and a pastor and some seminarians went out to witness to these young men right out on the baseball diamond. They take a pause from their practice, and the young players gather around the coach and listen to the pastors, and they bow their heads. What a unique place for seeds to be planted. Another visitation the seminarians do each week is in the public schools. They go in and do Bible stories, Bible lessons, sing songs to all different ages in the elementary and middle schools. Take a minute to think about a public school doing that in this country. It wouldn't happen. What a great opportunity to share with little hearts what Jesus did for them. These kids get to hear the gospel being proclaimed in their native tongue, some of them for the very first time. We've started to see not only second-generation Christians in Latin America, but second-generation Lutherans. Elvis of Peru and Nefta of Mexico are examples of these second generations. With a natural gift of evangelism, Elvis Carrera, who you can see here, is soon to be ordained as the first Peruvian pastor ever. A monumental moment in our church's history. Mexico is one of our fastest growing churches in our Latin American region. Nefta Garcia, who you can see here, was ordained last year, bringing the total number of pastors to 9, and we have 12 more studying in the seminary now. We give thanks for these young men training to be pastors who will go tell the good news to this generation and to the next, taking what they have learned in seminary back to their home country, where they will preach the gospel for the entirety of their life. In January of 2019, Puerto Rico was rocked by 2,000 plus earthquakes, some of the largest quakes the island had seen in a century. In surveying the severity of what people were dealing with, we began to understand the immediate physical and spiritual needs of those people affected. We luckily have a team of missionaries on the ground in Puerto Rico who have dealt with many disasters before. If any of you remember Hurricanes Irma and Maria in 2017, they're far from a distant memory for the people on the island in Puerto Rico. As first responders, missionaries were ready with relief bags full of supplies and uplifting scriptural pamphlets with Bibles and little packages of food to help those displaced by the quakes. As you can imagine, fear consumed thousands of them. They left their homes and retreated to open-air shelters for fear of the walls literally collapsing around them. Tents popped up in front yards, alongside highways, and in parking lots. And as time went on, the camps became a little bit more structured, and additional aid began to trickle in. But our missionaries were already there. They were already ready in the camps and assisting people and offering God's assurance. Evident that the psychological damage from these earthquakes was almost greater than the structural damage to the island itself, pastors went from cot to cot, talking with people, listening to them, hearing about their struggles and their anxieties and their fears. They preached the gospel over a loudspeaker and worshiped and sang with those who would gather around. Disasters provide an opportunity not only to show Christ's compassion, but also to show a little light to those who feel lost and in the dark. Another way God has opened doors for our missionaries in Puerto Rico is through evangelistic home visits, which we do in each of our countries. This one happened in a governmental housing compound in the city of Ponce, where we have a few of our missionaries living. During one of the visits, we met a man named Edgardo. Now, normally when I walk into a home visit in Latin America, there's lots of people, lots of food, lots of family, and lots of music. During this visit, Edgardo was sitting alone in a colorless room with little but a bed and a small couch. He sat nervously and began to tell us that he had been abandoned by the Protestant church that he had once been an active member of. He'd become blind in his late 40s. As the pastor read from the scriptures, he explained to Edgardo that Jesus has a heart of grace and of love, and that he died for him and loves him, and that Edgardo is a son of God. Edgardo began to weep. He told the pastor how alone and neglected he had felt. For so many years, he felt this way, and he had no one to talk to. The pastor invited him to come to church, and the team continues to visit him each week. And he now comes to worship with the congregation in Fuente de Vida in Ponce, Puerto Rico. Although Edgardo will never see again, he will never regain his sight. We rejoice that he now sees a life in color and a life of faith. There's no doubt that God is greatly at work in this part of the world, and there's no better time than now to be a part of what Christ is doing in this part of the world. This mission is fully funded by folks like you, individuals who want to expand the Lord's kingdom on a global scale. Through your partnership and your prayers, you have the opportunity to make a tangible difference and be a part of the story in Latin America. What a relief it is to know that none of this is done on my own, but through him. The world needs to see God's love and to know his light. And I can't wait to get back out on the field and hear the sound of shutter. We are all but pixels in his very big plan. And I want to thank you in advance for coming to hear about this work where the gospel is being preached, churches are being planted, and mercy is being shown. You can feel free to follow along through Instagram and through email and newsletters. If you have a minute, you can sign up for my newsletter in the back of the room where my table is set up back there. You can grab some little information pamphlets and all that. In Isaiah 6, it says, "Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, 'Whom shall I send?' who will go for us? And I said, here I am, send me, send me. All right, enough talking. I want to hear from you. We're going to open up for questions and, and get to know you guys a little bit, and you can ask me anything that you'd like. So raise a hand if you have it, or we'll see you at the next service. Thank you so much. That's Pastor Dave.
Did you just share, for the whole story, but how you got from the Confession of Victoria, going from Asia, South America, how has that journey been for you? And then secondly, how has COVID affected overseas? So like the overseas missions, the work that you're doing, the work that these pastors are doing. So how has COVID impacted all of that work?
Yeah, we'll go with that one first. COVID has obviously greatly affected everyone in the world. I think Kayla could mention some things about how it's affected people in Spain, since she was serving there at that time. But it certainly affected the Latino populations in a great way. The pastors there and the missionaries have obviously had to learn how to pivot and get to know online a little bit better, and get to know how to kind of reach people without having that day-to-day contact. Our pastors and the seminarians are still working there. Pretty much everyone on our field remained in their post. They did not leave, as we all had an opportunity to do so. All of them have stayed and continued their work there. So it's I think, similar to here, where we're all just kind of learning how to adapt and how to pivot how you do ministry. So, a lot of relief bags is one way that they've gotten into the community and been able to support people spiritually through different pamphlets and offerings of that kind of sort. For instance, our team in Puerto Rico has done relief bags for a lot of the frontline workers. So they provided, water and rice and beans for these families to kind of live off of, because a lot of them have lost their jobs or their work. And most people, especially in the Caribbean, live, paycheck to paycheck. They're not. They don't have a retirement fund. They don't have all these, they don't have insurance and all this kind of thing. So when a family member is not able to work, it's a big deal. And so our churches and the missionaries and the pastors are doing their best to, bring their arms around these people and be able to provide spiritual assistance as well as oftentimes physical needs. So providing food, rice, beans, water, and the like, to try and alleviate some of those problems. So does that answer your first question roughly? Yeah, and you mentioned one other one. Can you repeat it? I'm sorry.
Your journey from...
Right. Yeah, I started out in Asia, as Pastor Dave says. I originally was supposed to stay in Hong Kong and work there all across the region, and the Lord had a different plan. I lived in Hong Kong for about 3 or 4 months, and then with unforeseen circumstances, we were actually moved to Taiwan, where I lived there for a little while. And So I lived in Taiwan, and we served a church there, and I had the great opportunity to kind of serve the entire region. So I get to document and share the work from missionaries from across, in Thailand, in Papua New Guinea, in Cambodia, and those kind of places. And unfortunately, I got very sick when I was living there. And had to make a move So the Missouri Synod kind of thought of some different options for me, and the director in Latin America offered to take me, which was great. So that's kind of how I ended up in Latin America. So I've been there since August of 2018, serving there, and it's a completely different dynamic. Latin Americans are loud, and there's lots of music, there's lots of food, and there's lots of family, and Asians tend to be a little bit more reserved, and neither of them are good or bad. It's just, it was a little bit of a culture shock, but I certainly embraced and tried to get to know both sides of the world a little bit better, and gotten the opportunity to meet a lot of really amazing people along the way. And everybody in the world needs to know Jesus. So I have a great chance to have worked in that part of the world, but also continue to work in Latin America.
How many languages do you know?
I was learning, the question was, how many languages do I know? Fluent in English, I think, but Spanish would be the only other one. I was a student of Mandarin and never quite got there. But in Asia, there's around 2,000 languages that are pretty prevalent. So Tamil and all of those, I never got it. Malayalam was just a little too hard. But no matter where I go, I tried to learn, a few of the courtesies and just to kind of get by. But luckily, I have great team members in that part of the world that were mainly fluent in those kind of languages. So, but in Latin America, it's great because everyone speaks Spanish for the most part, except in Brazil, it's Portuguese. But we actually have a bunch of team members that are alliance missionaries now that are speaking Portuguese, and the missionaries are speaking Spanish to them, and we just kind of try to understand one another. So, but that's the good thing about my job. It doesn't require language necessarily all the time. I get to mainly be in the back of the room, so it's a little bit different being up here in front of all of you. But normally I'm in the back with a big camera, making lots of noise. So, so Spanish is the only one. Yeah. Yes, sir.
As we were helping Trinity First Lutheran this summer after the violence around May Street in Franklin,
right.
We met a number of Spanish pastors, and I was just wondering if you were networking with any of those Spanish pastors here.
I would love to get the names of them. Probably not with those particular people, but I do kind of do the rounds around different congregations. Some of them are Spanish-speaking congregations, and a lot of them are folks like you, where I just kind of come in and share about what God's doing. But I would love to get connected with the people that you might know. The LCMS is kind of like a big quilt, I think. They're all kind of connected somehow and in some way. So I'm always happy to meet new people and work with them. But a lot of my visits are at places just like St. John's. Yeah, Kayla.
What is it that you do besides, is it all that you do, and why is what you do so important?
Yeah, the question is all I do take pictures and what the impact of that is. So a lot of my work is focused on documenting and recording what God is doing in certain places. So a lot of it is photography based. If you were in attendance for the church service earlier, you got to see a video, which I also compile along the way. Some of the other jobs that I have are working on the social media side and writing stories for our Latin American and Caribbean International page. So kind of working on some of those background things again. So if you would like to go to our Latin American Facebook page, you can go ahead and like us on there and follow along with what we do. You'll kind of see updates from all across the region, and some of that is done by me, and then some of it is done by a great colleague of mine named Jana. And we have a good back and forth where she can kind of cover the things that I'm not so good at, and I cover the things, that we can help each other with. So, but a lot of writing, a lot of social media, photography, design work for different missionaries who are doing presentations like this one. And also, when we have visitors come to the Dominican Republic where I'm based, we'll oftentimes have a lot of big gatherings with the seminary and that kind of thing. So I kind of coordinate different presentations that might happen and all of that. But I think the most important part of my job is that we have a record of what happens, and people like you get to see what the field looks like, and what a service in Uruguay looks like, what a service in Peru looks like, and the work that God is doing in spreading the gospel, and the seeds that are being planted in all the different areas. So being able to document that work and show people what is actually happening, and make a connection with that is kind of where I come into play. I also get a chance to meet all the different missionaries in the different parts of the world, and see the great stuff that they're doing. So a lot of my work is background things, so which is also necessary in the church. Yeah, Pastor Dave.
You have to raise all your own funds?
Yeah, the question is about funding. So funding comes from people like you, and we have a great partner in Mission Central. I don't know if any of you guys know Gary Tees out in Iowa. He is a great supporter of missionaries and helps support us. But a lot of the funding for my work and for other missionaries and the seminarians in our region and on our team come from people like you. So it's a great opportunity to partner with your church and with your missionaries, and get a connection to the field, and kind of see work from whether it's a pastor that you're supporting, or a communication person like myself. It's a great opportunity to connect more with your church at large. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I didn't see El Salvador and Guatemala mentioned.
Yeah. We do have work in Guatemala. I should add that to the slide if I didn't. We don't have anything happening in El Salvador right now. We have connections, obviously, in almost all the countries to the south of us, but in certain areas we are not able to work due to either safety or other concerns. So oftentimes the relationships that we have are built over a generation of time, and in certain places like El Salvador, we currently don't have work or missionaries there at this time. I don't think we have an active church, but there was once upon a time. But in certain places like that, in Venezuela, for instance, at this time, there's no missionaries allowed in the country at all for safety concerns, and just it wouldn't be possible. So that doesn't mean that there's not a church and there's not active members in that church or pastors serving. But in El Salvador, we do not currently have anybody. But always working toward a relationship in those different areas. But that would be one of them that we didn't. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
What's your living arrangements like? Do you live with a family, or
Yeah.
are you on your own?
Yeah, living arrangements is the question. So I have a couple of roommates. I'm living with a deaconess student and another young lady who is in short-term teamwork. And we have a little flat, I guess, or apartment in the Dominican Republic where I'm based in Santiago. And we kind of live in a neighborhood with other missionaries as well. So there's a number of families in the same neighborhood. most of the regional team, which is what I am a part of, lives in Santiago, and it's a good kind of hub for traveling to the different spots that we have. So just in a little apartment in the city, yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
So what is your schedule now? Are you going to be here for a little while?
Yeah.
And would you head back?
Yes, my schedule now. So right now I'm on home service. Hopefully we'll be heading back, Lord willing, in a month or two. I have appointments scheduled kind of in Minnesota for most of May, and then I'll be in Washington where I have some connections there as well. And then probably working in Alaska a little bit for, as my father knows pretty much everyone and everywhere. So he's connecting with some churches there. But hopefully in the next couple of months, I would hope by the end of June to return. I'll be, initially I went out as a geo missionary, which is about a 2-year stint. I did that for about 4 years. So they asked me to either commit to a career position or to, think about not extending more. So I'll be transitioning as a career missionary. So my living arrangements actually might be changing a little bit, but I'll be hopefully back soon. Yeah. Any other questions?
How do we pray for you?
How can you pray for me? That's the most powerful gift that you can give to missionaries in general, is the gift of prayer. I would ask that you, how would be, I don't know, what would you say, Kayla, as a missionary before, how is the best way? I guess just keeping us in prayer, but praying for safety, for health. Those are probably the biggest asks that I would have. Obviously, living in a third world country has some of its challenges with different health cares and that kind of thing. So safety and health would be, I guess, my prayer. But maybe Kayla has another. What was that? Fundraising as well, yeah. That the Lord may raise up the people and the funds to support this work and to continue working there. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So I know you've traveled to a lot of different countries, and now you're in the Latin Caribbean region. What are some of the coolest ministries that you've seen people doing? Like I know like some cool things going on in Puerto Rico, crafts, and different things going on in Uruguay.
Yeah, so some of the best and most interesting, coolest ministries in our part of the world. I would say every single country that I have the opportunity to visit has its own unique things going on. So in Puerto Rico, for instance, we have a deaconess who is very creative, and she reaches out into the community by doing home visits, as you saw on the screen, but also through different classes. So we have English classes, we have art classes, we have music classes there, and we reach out to the community by offering those for no cost and getting the chance to kind of meet people that way, but then kind of develop those relationships over time. In Uruguay, we have a school, one of the largest schools, Lutheran schools in our region. Over 2,500 kids go to school there. And it's one of the most secular countries, I guess, in our entire region. A lot of atheists there, very, very little Christian population. And there are other Christian schools in Montevideo in Uruguay that when you go, you are required to go to catechism and to go to baptism, or to get baptized and all of these things. And in our church, or in our school, we give the kids a choice. You can attend Bible classes if you wish, And we actually have many more students in attendance in our Lutheran school than in any other Christian schools. And they're not forced, they have the choice. So giving people the opportunity to be a part of Bible classes and learning has actually been a really great blessing instead of forcing that on people. So giving them the chance to come at their own free will. That school there has, 2,500 kids. It also has a church along with it, which is, blossoming. It has a couple hundred, which is very unique for a Latin American country, especially a secular country like that. But out of that has come another mission and another church plant. So where one church plant is, another often sprouts. And in the Dominican Republic, for instance, we started out, with just one church, and it's grown to 9, soon to be 11 different churches and church plants. So once we reach an area and get to know the people, and they bring their friends and they bring their family, the web just keeps kind of growing, and the seeds get tossed further and further out, and soon you have faithful Lutherans covering the entire country. So in Spain, we have a couple families that travel all over the country, often are on planes or trains for 9 to 10, 12 hours, going to the different mission plants that we have, giving them communion and that kind of thing. So in Chile right now, we have, Chile is such a vastly long country, not a lot of width to it, but very tall. And our pastors there will drive through the night and go see, when I visited, we arrived at, 6 in the morning. It was an overnight flight. We were on the road until 3 in the morning the next day, getting ready to go serve the different people in these different areas. So you have pastors with great tenacity and great love for their people and their countries, and in growing the gospel or in spreading the gospel and preaching the gospel to people who have never heard before. So in every place we have wonderful different things that are happening, but in Guatemala, for instance, as you mentioned, we had a conference for one of the Lutheran schools that we have, and we had almost 200 teachers come and hear about their Lord. And oftentimes in the Lutheran schools, they're not always Christian. The teachers that come in, sometimes they're just, they are a teacher and they teach math, and they're oftentimes not Lutheran. So having these kind of conferences and offering them a chance to learn and to grow in their faith and become a Lutheran or a Christian is one of the cool things that's happening in Guatemala, for instance. But yeah, there's great work happening kind of all over. Yeah.
All right, so just a couple of things. So first, can we give her another big round of applause? So again, she has her table set up out back. I really encourage you to stop by, check it out, challenge her, ask her any more questions you have. But also, if you're willing, I know she's got some prayer cards out there. She's got some ways on how you can financially support her. Again, consider that. One thing that she didn't mention, but before, so you're a photographer. So before you became a missionary, what did you do?
Yeah. I worked in a couple different places, but I worked for the NBA, the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Minnesota Lynx for a while, WNBA as well. I worked in a university as a photographer and a designer. I worked for a web company, doing their graphic design and development work, and freelanced for different bands, I guess, out of Nashville. So working with groups like the Pentatonics and Jason Derulo and Philip Phillips, these kind of bands, I guess. So very different work than what I'm doing now, but never thought I'd be a missionary. So, but God uses everyone and everyone's gifts in different ways. So I'm just blessed to be able to kind of do this work and do it, blindly, but it's a great blessing. So
as you probably picked up there, I mean, the work she did before missionary, working from high profile people, doing weddings, right?
yeah, freelance and stuff too. Yeah.
So if you have people getting married, you understand photographers aren't cheap.
Yeah.
So for her to be kind of in this world and say, here I go, I'm going to leave this behind to go and document this. It's a huge leap. So again, she is fully, completely self-funded, so if you can support in any way, that would be great. And the last I will say about the work that she does, again, I think we all understand the power of the power story, the power of visualization. And we've had so many instances where you hear a story as one thing, then when you actually hear or you see the same thing, it has a completely different effect on you. And again, I love what she's doing. My wife is back there, she understands. I hate traveling. In my life, I don't really see a need to cross the border. I'm talking about Washington County. So when you see these images, you realize just how big the world is. And she talks about how different it is, and yet the gospel needs to go there. So again, the work she does is incredible because look at those pictures. I know for me, I don't know how I hit you, but just a reminder of just how massive the world is, how many people there are, how many different situations, and yet they all need to hear about the love of Christ. So again, excellent job. Keep up the great work. Make sure you stop by her table and say hi, ask her ways to support her. And if you stick around for the second service, we'll show the video that she talked about. So again, thanks for coming. God bless all of you, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.